Hey everybody, time for some updates. So far for May, we're 16 days in at this point, and I've gotten 11.41 kilowatts of solar generated from the 6 panels that I've got. Reminder, these are 100-watt panels, so the most I could get in is 600 watts, so 600 watt hours. So still working on having the sun in a normal spot and available most of the time. Had a lot of rainy days, which has done wonders for making the grass and things grow, but not really great when you want to get out and try to mow it. If I haven't mentioned before, I use an electric mower. The electric mower is recharged off of the solar system so that the impact of me mowing the lawn is much less as far as resource utilization goes. It takes quite a while to recharge the mower, so by mowing and then plugging it in while there's solar going for the rest of the day, that balances it back out. The solar doesn't come in at a high rate, and the lawnmower doesn't take it at a high rate, so it balances itself out nicely. That said, projects for this year. I want to get back to putting up the solar array. Now, as I've mentioned previously, I was able to get my hands on a EcoWorthy unit. What it does is it's powered and changes the position of the panels based on the sun. So as the sun traverses across the sky, the panels will continue to manipulate themselves to make sure that the sun is directly on the panel. Issues, of course, with something like this is wind, right? You want that thing to flatten right out when the wind comes through. You don't want it to turn into a sail. And I'm not going to mount it to the ground. I'm going to try something a little different with this and frame it in such a way that it shouldn't matter. That it's not going to be at ground level. So we'll see how all that turns out. But that will allow me to put the 6 panels that I've got. I have 2 existing 100-watt panels plus 4 new ones that are still sitting in the boxes for me to put in place on the unit once it's up. And I have to figure out how I'm going to power it. Their recommendation is with a battery, but I don't have a spot to put a battery, and the battery is going to have to be recharged. So on the one hand, it's an interesting idea. On the other hand, it's kind of a pain because, it's not going to be efficient that way. Probably going to put something like a 12-volt output off of 120 that I can put in there and use that to give these power. And then I can hook that into the solar array so that it's getting power off the power that I've got stored up. So that's probably where I'm going with that particular project. In addition to that, you're probably aware that the number of bees and pollinators are going down. I want to make sure that there is plenty of flowers appropriate for them, so that I'm putting up a bunch of wildflower gardens this year. In addition, because I have so many birds that I now feed with all the feeders, I'm putting up some giant sunflowers so I can capture some of the sunflower seeds from the sun this year and put those aside to keep the birds fed, so that I'm not relying on external sources for as much seed as I am right now. I'd also like to see if I could get some of the other seed working in a garden as well. We'll see how that goes over the course of the year. The deck that I put up still has to be finished as far as putting a railing on the stairs is concerned. And the new solar panel array is going to be attached to it. Probably what's going to happen this year is, instead of having the entire deck put together, I'm going to put the framework up and give myself a workspace to put this unit in place and see how it works, and then maybe frame it up as we go. The tariffs, the issues going on between the United States and Canada, which is where we get most of our lumber, are bull, and it's going to impact our prices for everything. So I want to hold off a little bit and see if this is going to shake itself down so that things go back to normal. Most of what I'm going to need is 2x6 and 4x4s. Plus, I still have the bird feeder setup that I'm putting together. If you hadn't heard about that, my collection of, I think I'm up to 19 bird feeders that I have in place right now. A row of 10 and a row of 9 are underneath my overhang for the house, which makes it very convenient in terms of keeping it dry, but doesn't do a great job of letting the birds hit it from all sides, right? Because the house is on one side of it. It protects it come winter, which is good. But it also means that if a bear or something comes by, it's right by my windows. Not a big fan. So I'm going to move it out from the house. And once I do that, I want to put a top over it. And I'm thinking about probably over-engineering it, because that's typically what I do, by putting 4 4x4s into the ground, putting a frame up for a roof, putting a single pitch roof in. So instead of having a V shape at the top, it's going to be a single pitch so that the water runs off. That way, the advantage I get from using that is if I go to fill the feeders up, I'm not underneath the drip line, and I'll have to walk underneath the drip line. I'll have that one side where it's higher and the water's running off so that I won't get quite as wet as I do right now trying to go under the drip line to fill the feeders. And that should afford the birds some protection. Come winter, I may put in a panel on the north and south sides, leaving the east and west. So the west side will have the house as a buffer on it. The east side will be left open, but by having the north and south sides with panels in place, it'll buffer that come storm weather, and hopefully keep the birds a little bit more protected when they're in there. I'm also thinking about adding in some perches and things so that the birds have a spot that they can go in and be out of the weather for a little while. It used to be, back when Christmas tree lights were popular, those lights weren't LED. They had regular bulbs in them, and those bulbs generated heat. And if you had them outside in a tree, the birds had a spot that they could snuggle up against the lights when it was cold outside and keep themselves protected. Now, if you've not seen birds in winter, what they will typically do is, if they can find a place that they can tuck in, they have a bird on the outside. All right, it could be on both sides of whatever little line they've got of birds. Every so often, those two birds, or one if they've got it pressed up against a tree, will fly up and in, and the group will make an opening for them in the middle. That way, the outside birds don't freeze. They're cycling into a very warm spot, because while they're cold, they've got a series of birds on both sides pressed up against them to warm them back up again. And then a new pair of birds takes over on the outside. It's very similar to when we go on a watch. If we're in an area where you're unsure about what's going to happen, so somebody stays on watch while everybody else sleeps, and then you cycle through people so that the person does get a rest. Same thing happens with the birds. The birds cycle through who's on the outside getting cold. They cycle into the middle where it's nice and warm, and then a new pair of birds, the next ones on the end, are now the cold ones. So back when we had these light bulbs, they could tuck in with the light bulbs and use the light bulbs for warmth. Now that we've gone LED on everything, they don't generate heat the same way. So the best that they can do is have a spot where they can tuck themselves in. And this might work for them, giving them a little shelter from the wind. In addition to that, I'm also looking at bat houses. If you're unfamiliar with what a bat house is, bats tuck themselves in very tightly to each other, kind of like the birds do. And a bat house allows them to get up and inside from the bottom, and they tuck in there and sleep. Bats are excellent for keeping down insect populations, and there's a couple of sets of bats that I've had in the area for years because we had a pond and some swampland. Well, the swampland is basically been destroyed because a neighbor decided to tear down all the trees in the area, and that's why I have a black bear wandering around my property, because their home has been destroyed. So I'm thinking about getting a couple of bat houses so that the bats who may now be displaced can find other places, and it'll also allow the existing bats to expand territory. And if they expand territory, then hopefully they'll breed and they'll expand their population, and that will allow us to have more nighttime insect catchers around. They come out around twilight. When I was up at the fort, they came out about, let's see, 8 to 8:30, and just snarfed up every insect you could possibly think of. And that was just one bat. While there were quite a few insects that were out when the bat showed up, soon we didn't have the collection of insects around anymore. Why would you have insects? Well, the fort is right there on the lake, so it's kind of a great place for them to collect the insects. So we'll see how that goes here for that as well. So that'll add me some birds to my collection of animals, which includes skunks, raccoons. I've got a possum now. I've got a female black bear, full grown, that wanders around the property, as well as the birds, the squirrels, the chipmunks. So the advantage of living out in the woods is all the animal life that I get to see on a daily basis, including deer walking across my backyard. So I'm trying to provide them with a safe haven for all of the animals, for them to have a place and tuck in. The birds, or the deer typically have been nesting near the house in the winter. It affords them some protection. They're on the north side, which I find kind of weird. But because they're on the north side of the house is a nice buffer for at least one full side. And where they tucked in was in a bit of a dip, so they were protected on, in part, on all sides except the north from the weather. And on the north side, the neighbor has a series of trees that are there that provide a little bit of a buffer there. So trying to turn the property into a safe haven and respect and recognize the fact that I'm sharing the property with nature, that this isn't my property and I'm not going to evict all of these animals from here. They're going to be here and we're going to live together in harmony as best we can. And I'm going to do what I can to protect them. So part of the projects this year is going to be to provide for those animals and provide for the pollinators so that we have more flowers and we can have a more fuller environment here, and put some protection up so that the birds and things have a place to nest and be safe and comfortable, while also trying to provide what I can for the other animals that are here. I haven't seen the foxes yet this year, but I have a feeling they're around. So I have a large collection of animals, and the pollinators will help them to have berries and anything else that they want to, anything they wanted to eat The bear will eat a bunch of berries. So having the blackberry plants come up, which they've done already, will help the bear get through the year. And we'll see how we go. Again, we've got 13 acres of land, which is a lot of land, and yet not much. A border, in a way, the Green Mountain State Forest, and as you know, that's about to be culled for wood because of the idiots in charge of the government right now. If that should happen, that means there's going to be even more animals displaced, and they're going to need even a bigger place for them to go to. They'll be driving out bears. They'll be driving out anything else that happened to be out there. So I'm trying to give them a safe landing spot that they can come to. May get very crowded here, but that's okay. 13 acres of land, I don't take up too much space by myself. So that's what I got for you guys this week. I will talk to you all next week.